Shalom! Hey, this is Dan, and I know it's been a while since I got on here and talked to you, but I want to share something tonight with you. Again, we're going to finish up, we're going to look at Genesis. We're going to finish it up tonight. And you might be wondering what I'm doing sitting in front of this puzzle. Well, you know, when I was reading the last part of Genesis, I couldn't help but think that everything that is said as Jacob is laying hands and praying over his sons, everything that's said kind of looks like a big old jumbled puzzle when it's all said. But I'm going to show you tonight how some of the things that were said over his sons actually came to pass. Now, I've been working on this puzzle here, I don't know, maybe about a week or so now, and I have maybe 35–40% of it done. When it's all done, it's going to look like this deer jumping over this fence thing, but I'm not quite there yet. So I'm going to kind of work on a little bit here as I'm talking to you. Now, this one might go a little bit long. I'm just going to warn you ahead of time because we got to cover 12 brothers, and there's something really cool about each one of them I want to show you and how it all wraps in at the end with this puzzle. I won't have the puzzle finished by the time this segment is done, but just bear with me here. Now, I took a couple notes here because there's a lot of information that I wanted to share out of here with you, but I want to start by Genesis 49:1. The verse that we're looking at here, it says that talks about Jacob called his sons to him, and they all gathered around, and he spoke to them, and it says he says he was going to tell them what was to come for each of them. Now, he starts by praying for his oldest son first, which we know is Reuben. Normally, the way it would work for the double blessing, which Reuben should have gotten, would be that, in this case, Jacob would take his estate, and he would divide it by 13 pieces, even though he only had 12 sons. He would divide it by 13, and then the oldest, in this case Reuben, would get 2/13, and everybody else would get 1/13. But here's the deal. When Jacob calls Reuben to him, he says, you know, Reuben, I got to tell you, you're not going to get the double blessing because what you did with my wife or my concubine, Bilhah. Now, if you remember right, he slept with her, and that was in some aspects kind of sodomy. That was a no. She was Jacob's wife. I think his third or fourth wife there, but nonetheless, he had no right sleeping with her. When Jacob had found this information out, he was angry. And so here we see him at the end, still maybe a little bit angry about this whole situation, saying to his son, you're not going to receive the double blessing because of what you did with her. Now, he goes on to say that Reuben would be as unstable as water. Let me give you a couple instances of how that fits here. First, looking at Leviticus 16, we see that Reuben's tribe was part of the group that joined the rebellion with Korah, and as a result, the earth opened up and swallowed some of them. They went against what God was saying to Moses, and thinking that after they did some of their sinning, as far as, if memory serves me right here, well, I'm not going to guess. I'll have to go back and read that. But here we have an instance where, sure enough, the ground opens up. Not a good place to be in. Actually, I think that might be Numbers 16, not Leviticus 16. I'm sorry, I'll have to check that though. But now here we also see in Numbers 32 that it was part of the tribe of Reuben that decided that they did not want to go any further, and so they wanted to have their land east of the Jordan. Well, again, they didn't follow the rest of the pack, so they're kind of bordering on that unstable part. The last instance I want to bring up to you here is Judges 5, where it says that they searched their hearts instead of engaging in the battle against Sisera. Now, this is after the Battle of Jericho, after the land of Canaan's already been overtaken, and you have the judges established. And sure enough, the different tribes, you know, they had the Philistines that they had to battle. They had some of the other people that they weren't able to kick out in the times of Joshua that are coming back and wreaking havoc later on in the Bible, as we see here in Judges. And so here's one of those instances where instead of joining the battle, they said, oh, well, we're just going to hang back here. We're just going to see what happens. And as a result, they again proved themselves as being unstable like water. So, you know, it's really important in this aspect here, just to point this out, that what is prophesied over someone comes to pass. Here, Jacob didn't know what was going to happen 400 plus, 500 plus, 600 plus years down the road. He was speaking with what God showed him at that moment. And as we continue on here, you're going to see these things coming to pass here. The next group that he talks to is Simeon and Levi. And it says, excuse me, it says that these two were like peas in a pod. Now, these two brothers, I mean, it's just kind of, these guys were always together. It says they were brothers, but it doesn't mean they were just brothers. Yeah, we know they were both born from Leah, but they were brothers. They did everything together. They were best friend, buddy, pals, blood covenant, everything. And so here we got this, back in the time where we were talking about Shechem now, and you might remember the story where their sister gets raped, and so what do? These two brothers come up with this idea that they're going to have all the men in the town get circumcised, and while they're still in pain from their circumcision, they're going to come in and crush them. They're going to wipe them all out. Now, here again, you got another instance, and if you remember, Jacob's words to his sons were, "You made me a stench in the eyes of these people here." So again, we got Jacob maybe on his deathbed being a little bit frustrated with these brothers still. And so here's what he says. He says that they would be divided in Jacob and scattered in Israel. What exactly does that mean? I'm going to point out to you here. It says that the Simeon got the arid pockets of the land in Judah's inheritance. His numbers decreased. Now look, this is really cool, or not cool. This is interesting to see how God's word comes about here. In Numbers chapter 1, when they took the census, they had 59,300 people. But chapters later, in chapter 26, when they take the census again, Simeon's tribe is already reduced to 22,200 people. And it says that the reason that this happened was because in Numbers 25, the tribe of Simeon was one of the ones that was dealing a lot with idolatry, and just they got caught up in that, and God didn't like that. So let that be a warning to you. If you're serving an idol, you might want to change your way right now. But now let's look what happened to Levi, because again, the prophecy, or the word spoken over here, said that they would be divided in Jacob and scattered in Israel. Well, what happened to the Levites? Well, we know they didn't get any land. They didn't get any land at all because they were called to be the priests. They were going to be not necessarily the scavengers of the group, but they were going to be the ones who had no place to call their own home. And so as a result, they got scattered. They got scattered to where the Levites had a little bit, they had the ability to live with each of the tribes, but they didn't have a place to call their own. There was no land of the Levites, just like there was the tribe of the Reubenites. Then they had their own specific spot marked out for them. Levi didn't have one of those. And so we see that, again, these words that were spoken came to pass. I'm going to try and move a little bit faster here. I know I'm going long, but this is, when I read this was jumping off the page of me. So I just want to share as much as I can here with you in this short time. Skipping over to Judah now. Now we know probably the most about Judah. We know that our Messiah is from the tribe of Judah. We know that David was from the tribe of Judah. Now, why do we see that there's more kings and stuff coming from this tribe? It's because of the words spoken again by Jacob as he's on his deathbed here. Judah gets the double portion in leadership. Okay? Now, it says in Genesis 49:8, it says, "Your brothers will acknowledge you." This is what Jacob is saying. Now, Judah meant praise. So here, right off the bat, he's saying that Judah, you are going to be praised. But he also says the scepter will not pass from you. And it sets up the stage right there. Because if you look at the kings that came on the scene here, you have first Saul, who came from the tribe of Benjamin. But when God removed him for his lack of obedience, who did he put in that place? He put a person from the tribe of Judah. That's where we find David. And who followed after that? Solomon. And it kept on going. And if you follow the whole lineage, now not everybody had the kingly anointing, because remember there was the division in the camp there. But when we follow the lineage, and you can see this in Matthew, you follow the lineage from David on down, you find that Joseph, who was the earthly father of our Messiah, was from the tribe of David. So again, the scepter did not pass. Zebulun was the next one that Jacob spoke about here. And it says that he would live at the seashore. Now, years on later down the road, when Joshua was handing out the portions of land and all, we find that Zebulun indeed got the area between the Mediterranean Sea and the Sea of Galilee. This opened up a whole bunch of access to trade routes, both in the water but also in the land. And it says here that they got the treasures from both. In Deuteronomy 33:19, it says that they shall have the abundance of the seas and the lands. And we see that's exactly what happened when they brought the trade routes in. That they got both the good stuff coming off the water, but also the stuff coming across the land to get to the water. And so it was good stuff. But then we also find out that back when Jacob was talking to his son, he said that they would have a border at Zion. And that, and we see later on when Joshua did the division, he didn't give them this land. Well, did they get it? Yes, they did. And here's how. Because later on, Asher's tribe could not get the Canaanites to get out of their land. And so what they do, they called on some help from their brothers. Zebulun's tribe came in. They helped get rid of the Canaanites. And as a result, they got the land that was promised to them from their father that was not given to them from Joshua. They got this land by the seaports and all that, and that became theirs. Issachar was the next one. And you know, when you read this one about Issachar, you see, I'm going to try and do some of my puzzle here as I'm talking. I'm getting carried away. But as you read about Issachar, you see that it says that he was a strong donkey. And when you think about strong donkeys, we probably, I don't know, the first thing that comes to your mind is probably not something I can say on this blog for you, this video blog. But we get this idea that a donkey is a stubborn animal, and other than being a beast of burden, how can that be a compliment? Well, you got to dig a little bit. But what is being said here is that this tribe is valuable. You see, a donkey back then, they were valued because they were beasts of burden. They could carry this stuff up. Yes, they were stubborn, but they were also able to bear a lot on their back. And so this is what is being said here by Jacob, is that they would be a strong donkey. They would be a valuable asset. In Genesis 49:15, we see them as the people who would fight for what they had, and they would prevent others from stealing it. This is true because if you look in Judges 10, this is the tribe who was led by Tola, one of the judges, and they stood their ground against the enemy that was coming in. They knew what they had to do, and they did it. They were a valuable piece for protecting their portion of the land from being inhabited again by the Canaanites. But we also see in 1 Chronicles 7, they're named as valiant. Again, kind of fitting in with the valuable thing. And then in 1 Chronicles 12:32, they were men of understanding, meaning that, again, they knew what they had to do and they did it. They didn't let things creep up on them. They didn't just sit back and take whatever comes. No, they knew what they had to do and they did it. And they became, again, a valuable asset for the land of Israel in that they would not let the enemy come back in. Now that takes up a couple of the brothers, and I'm on page 2 now. By the way, I think this piece goes right here. Oh, maybe not. There. Alright, there, I got one. Alright, so I saw that one out of the corner of my eye there. So the next one, the next brother is Dan. Now, my name is Daniel, and it means God is my judge. But if you shorten just the name Dan, you have the meaning judgment. Now, the most famous person that came out of the tribe of Dan was who? You might know, you might not. It was Samson. Samson was a Dananite. Now, here you have a classic scenario, just kind of like we were talking about with the former brother. But here you have another one where the enemy is coming in and they're being bombarded and they're causing ruckus. And what happens? God sends a judge by the name of Samson, who was a Dananite, to come in there and judge the land. Samson was used to judge the Philistines for what they were doing, for their lack of serving God, for their idol worship. And so we have we have Samson in his last days taking out a vast majority. It says in Judges here, it says that on that final day when Samson was blinded and he had lost his strength, and God re-empowered him, and he crushed and killed more people that day than he did all of his other times. And if you look at some of those other times, I mean, he's taking a donkey's jawbone and he's busting a few heads. He didn't have no small numbers. This guy was racking up numbers every time he had a tool to use. But on the final day of his life, he killed even more than what he had done. God used him in an awesome way, and this fits with judgment. God brought judgment through Samson on those who did not serve him. But we also see Judges 18 talks about how the tribe of Dan grew tired of serving God. And this is sad, because they just come off this awesome feat with Samson and his working under God's power, judging the people. But now here they are in a position where they say, we're a little tired of following God, and we're a little tired of doing everything we're supposed to do. And so what they did is they went out and found this place called Laish. And 600 men, a Levite priest who really wasn't following God's ways, and a false god, all came together, and this city of Laish became an idol-worshipping Mecca. It says that there was a cult idol worship center. And here fits in with the last part of what Jacob said, because the first part was judgment, but the last part here, Jacob actually says a prayer, and he says, I wait for your deliverance, Adonai. What does that mean? Well, you see, the Dananites, after they did this whole idol worship thing, they were thrown into they were captured. They were thrown into a captivity. And it wasn't until they made a change and they followed God's ways again that they were able to come under the blessing again. So the prayer is saying, I wait for your deliverance, Adonai. I wait for that time when they come back to you. That's what God wants from all of us. When we stray, He waits for us to come back. When we turn and change our ways, God's right there. It says in 1 Chronicles 7:14 that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them and I will heal their land. That's what this is talking about. We have Gad. I'm on brother number 8, I'm sorry. We got Gad now. In Genesis 49:19, this is a puzzling one. Again, it says, a troop will troop on him, and he will troop on their heel.